Insulin resistance is at the root of most modern day diseases. It also causes abdominal fat, skin tags, and the majority of high blood pressure cases. And as you're probably aware, these symptoms are all very common. And this signifies just how common insulin resistance is. However, it usually goes undiagnosed until, of course, it progresses to prediabetes. The good news is that insulin resistance is a lifestyle condition. And what this means is that by making small changes to our daily habits, and especially to our dietary habits, the disease can be completely reversed. And we're gonna go over how exactly to put together meals to do this in today's video. Step number 1 is to prioritize protein. Protein is the most important macronutrient, and especially when it comes to insulin resistance. If you are eating enough protein to meet your needs, it is very difficult to overconsume energy in general. Protein is the building block for our cells, and because of this, there's a certain amount we need every single day. By prioritizing protein, and animal protein in particular because it's the most bioavailable, we can take advantage of something known as the protein leverage hypothesis. This hypothesis states that we eat until our protein needs are met, regardless of energy content. So if we are eating foods that are just rich in carbohydrates or just rich in fat, but don't contain very much protein, it's very easy to overeat. A good starting point for a lot of people is to aim for 30 grams of protein at every meal. This will ensure you're not hungry in between meals, and it will reduce your need to snack. Because when we're insulin resistant, snacking is actually counterproductive. It actually makes insulin resistance worse. Some good protein sources that you can include are beef, chicken, pork, wild-caught salmon, tinned fish in spring water, and eggs. Animal protein sources are superior to plant protein sources, so I always recommend them as the first option. However, I know it can sometimes be difficult to know if you're buying quality meat, which is one of the reasons why I shop with ButcherCrowd. An Australian business, ButcherCrowd brings grass-fed and pasture-raised meat and wild-caught seafood straight to your door nationwide. Everything is ethically and sustainably sourced and always delivered with free shipping. And with the option to pause, change, or cancel your subscription at any time, there really is no reason to not give them a try. I love ButcherCrowd because it connects you directly with Australian farmers. If you want to check them out, you can head to healthcoachkait.com/butchercrowd. I'll put that link in the description box down below. And make sure to use code KATE15 to save 15% off your first order. Thank you again to ButcherCrowd for sponsoring this video. Now, a lot of people worry about overconsuming protein, but unless you have pre-existing kidney damage, then there's no reason to be concerned. Like I said before, protein helps to regulate satiety. It is very difficult to overeat protein. Step number 2 is to choose your cooking oil. Now that you have your protein, you want to choose a fat or an oil to cook with. Ghee, butter, tallow, lard, duck fat, and coconut oil are all good options. Olive and avocado oil are also good, but only for lower temperature cooking. Avoid vegetable oils at all costs. And when I say vegetable oils, I'm referring to canola oil, grapeseed oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, corn oil, sunflower oil. I don't have time to get into exactly why these are a concern and why you should be avoiding them if you're insulin resistant in today's video, but I'm gonna link another video above that will answer that question. Step number 3 is to add fruits and vegetables. Ideally, you want to be choosing fruits and vegetables that are low in carbohydrates. And this is because carbohydrates are the macronutrient that requires the most insulin to process. When we are working to reverse insulin resistance, we want to reduce our need for insulin as much as possible, because it's when we are in this low insulin state that our cells become more sensitive to insulin once again. If our insulin is always high, this is actually what causes insulin resistance in the first place, and it will stop you from being able to reverse it. Now, this doesn't mean you have to avoid carbohydrates entirely, but when you can, choose lower carb options. Examples of low carbohydrate fruits include avocados, olives, berries, and coconut meat. Low carb vegetables include more or less anything that is non-starch. So broccoli, asparagus, mushrooms, cucumber, lettuce, cauliflower, etc. Depending on the dish you're making, you can choose one or multiple of these fruit and vegetable options, but try to aim for about 1 to 3 servings. And finally, step number 4 is to add more fat. And this step is key. When you are reducing carbohydrates in your diet, your energy comes from fat instead. And this includes both dietary fat and our stored body fat. Now, one question I'm often asked is that if you have a lot of weight to lose, should you try to limit fat in your diet as well so that you can tap into this stored body fat? And the answer is no. You don't want to limit fat in your diet too much, especially when you're insulin resistant. Because when you're insulin resistant, your body is mainly relying on carbohydrates and glucose for energy, and it's not able to burn fat efficiently. So what ends up happening is that if you limit your carbohydrates and you limit your fat, your body is searching for an energy source, and it ends up converting some of the protein you're consuming into glucose instead. But if you provide your body with a dietary fat source, it uses that for energy instead. And your protein is reserved for all of the other functions in the body that it's needed for. So what this looks like is adding some extra olive oil if you're having a salad, maybe topping a steak with butter. Don't trim the fat, don't get skinless chicken. These are all good sources of fat. Or you can add some avocado or some olives to your meal as well. Okay, so those are the 4 steps. But what does this look like in practice? So let's say your protein source is a steak. You could cook it in tallow with a side of steamed broccoli, for example. And then the added fat could be a bit of butter or some blue cheese on top. Or let's say you want to incorporate this formula into a recipe. Let's use the example of butter chicken. Protein is obviously the chicken thigh and maybe some bone broth in the sauce. You're gonna cook it in ghee and serve it with cauliflower rice as your vegetable. The additional fat would be the coconut milk that's added to the sauce. And of course, you can add spices to your preference. These are just 2 examples, but you can use this formula in so many different ways. To recap, you want to choose a protein. This is gonna be the center of your meal. From there, you want to choose a cooking oil or fat from those options that I listed earlier. Then you want to add fruits and vegetables, ideally low in carbohydrates. And finally, you want to end with adding some additional fat. Now, if you're looking for a little bit more guidance and support getting started on your journey to reverse insulin resistance, I highly recommend checking out my 7-day insulin resistance masterclass. In this masterclass, I give you a sample meal plan, you get shopping guides, and you also get access to myself and my assistant coach, Alicia, through a private Facebook group. Any questions or concerns you have, you can ask us there. I'll put the link to that in the description box down below as well. Anyways, guys, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. And one last thing before you go, if you're in Australia and looking for quality meat and seafood, make sure to check out Butcher Crowd. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.